Ooh, on a cool spring morning from the car. Can you hear those birds chirping? Wow, bucolic. The other day, I was talking about fanaticism. Fanaticism in the manifesting community, aka stupidity in the law of assumption, law of attraction, manifesting community. We see far too much of it. You know, if you get into these ideas, these manifesting concepts, and you're on places like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, you're going to see egregious examples of group stupidity. And you're also going to see a ton of subtle examples of group stupidity. And one of the things I was trying to point out the other day is the degree and extent of this is far more than one might suspect. The more that one looks at like groupthink and spiritual bypassing and is kind of aware of how these communities present information, which I personally have become much more aware of with my, just looking more on YouTube over the last year and a half and being involved with Reddit directly, including moderating the Neville subreddit for a brief period of time. I've become much, much more aware of the degree of groupthink, fanaticism, mental illness, and just plain old dumbness that this community has hiding right behind the curtain. It's fucking disgraceful, and it's making it so people who could implement these ideas effectively, soundly in their life to help themselves and others are unable to, because they're being given advice that sucks, that is really not relevant to what a lot of these great teachers were saying 50 or 100 years ago, that shames them, that gaslights them, that makes it seem like LOA is something totally different than psychology or self-improvement or general well-being or mindfulness. It makes it seem like it's this magical thing on the top of the hill when it's fucking not. This is, in large part why I keep on making car videos, is to call bullshit on this. And I don't call bullshit on this just to call bullshit on it. I call bullshit on it because there is a better way. And the better way, in regards to manifesting concepts, in regards to LOA, in regards to law of assumption, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, because it's all basically the same thing, is to actually look at the teachings and apply them sanely in your own life. And the way to do that is to trust yourself. Not the teacher, but yourself. But the old teachers that we always talk about on this channel, that I've written about, that I've got a podcast about, those are the kind of people I'd be much more likely to trust than these anonymous MFers on Reddit and YouTube and elsewhere making big claims, or these YouTubers, making fantastical videos every day about the same technique over and over again, who have nothing new to share and just water down the information. That rant was under 4 minutes long. Pretty freaking good. Holy cow. And if you do want to talk to someone who actually is like a real person about this, then you got to seek that out. You got to seek out a real coach who actually can talk to you one-on-one, heart-to-heart about this, or a real counselor or therapist. That's what I do as a counselor and coach, is I actually speak to you about these concepts in your situation. I don't just say, assume the end. Unfortunately, there's not many coaches and counselors out there like myself when it comes to these concepts. Today, I thought that we could read from not a manifesting book, but an incredibly popular book, perhaps an overly popular book, quite frankly, these days. Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits is one of these books. It's by James Clear. It's an excellent book. But it's one of these books that, like, holy cow, is it popular. It's like, you see these things, it's like the top book of the last, 20 years or something like that. It's a great book. But I wanted to read from it because, first of all, it's popular. The advice is very applicable, like much more applicable than most of the manifesting advice you're going to hear when you go on YouTube. And secondly, the reason I want to read from it is because it ties into what we always talk about the underlying psychological principles that manifesting ideas touch upon, and that somebody like Emile Coué touches upon again and again in regards to what you suggest to yourself, what you're constantly imagining as being true, which is your suggestion. That's what ends up showing up in your life, right? And, last video I was saying, it's not like Coué maybe covered everything that, these manifesting concepts deal with, but he covered most of it. Especially like if you're into Neville, into the Law of Assumption, into Joseph Murphy. Coué is the backbone of most of that stuff. And if you don't realize that, it's because you haven't looked deeply enough. I love it when I see comments. People are like, I've studied this stuff for years and da-da-da-da. And it's like they've never studied Coué. It's just, you're studying the wrong stuff. Anyway, I'm amped today, man. Holy cow. In Atomic Habits, which I would probably recommend for a lot of people if they're having trouble implementing these manifesting ideas, that they stop reading books about manifesting ideas or watching YouTube videos and read Atomic Habits and implement some of the ideas in here instead for a couple months and see what happens. In Atomic Habits, James Clear writes, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs. But as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it actually is big. That's the paradox of making small improvements." Putting this all together, you can see that habits are the path to changing your identity. The most practical way to change who you are is to change what you do. Each time you write a page, you are a writer. Each time you practice the violin, you are a musician. Each time you start a workout, you are an athlete. Each time you encourage your employees, you are a leader. Each habit not only gets results, but also teaches you something far more important: to trust yourself. You start to believe you can actually accomplish these things. When the votes mount up and the evidence begins to change, the story you tell yourself begins to change as well. That sounds just like the Law of Assumption. You see that? You see how, first of all, how excellent that advice is that James Clear gave? That's his name, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah, James Clear. That's excellent advice. Excellent advice. But that's basically like these manifesting concepts. We hear about the law of attraction, law of assumption. That's what that is. See, on YouTube and in Reddit, places like that, you hear all these fantastic stories, which are great stories. And I get it. They're very inspiring and illustrative a lot of the time, of people assuming something. It's like, I'm broke and don't have a partner and I'm lonely, but I assume I'm going to have, all of a sudden I'm making $20,000 each month and I've got, a beautiful wife, and you assume it and then it just happens. It happens in 3 weeks. Someone they haven't seen in years offers them a perfect job and, they meet someone at the mall and all of a sudden they get married and it all happens like right away. You hear stories like that sometimes. Sometimes is the emphasis. Very, very, very occasionally, exceptional stuff like that happens really quickly. In books like The Law and the Promise, Neville gives a lot of good, relevant examples of things happening quickly. In The Power of Your Subconscious Mind and elsewhere, Joseph Murphy gives a lot of examples of things happening quickly, manifesting success stories that happen within, a couple weeks or a couple months that seemingly should have taken much longer. But that's not usually how it works successfully for most people, including probably you. Sometimes you might get really fast results, but usually it's going to be a slower process where every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become, and it gradually builds up, and before too long, you're a new person. You're in a different situation, a new reality, based on your new assumptions or self-suggestions, which you make over and over again. But it doesn't happen magically in 3 weeks or 3 months usually. It usually takes a little bit longer. It's incremental, gradual change and transformation through changing your self-suggestion, through changing your assumptions that does it. But it's not this quick, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, type manifesting. You know? Go to sleep tonight and you'll be this different person tomorrow. No. It takes a little bit of time, but it's worth doing. And it ties directly in to self-improvement in psychology, as we always talk about, as this James Clear passage hopefully illustrated for you. I want to read this paragraph, this one paragraph one more time, because it's so freaking good. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs. But as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it actually is big. That's the paradox of making small improvements. Small improvements, making self-suggestions consistently, just small self-suggestions over and over again. Assuming the best over and over again. Changing things in this way. It doesn't have to be this radical thing. It's not like, I changed my state and now boom. It's not that drastic usually. Not that radical. It's about making small but significant shifts over and over again. And then all those small shifts eventually add up to a significant shift in your external world, as well as your internal world. Atomic Habits makes a heck of a lot more sense and stuff like this makes a heck of a lot more sense than this jibber jabber about, whatever, the LOA, law of assumption stuff we usually hear. So just use your common sense. All right? And if you need help, feel free to email me. I answer most questions when I get emails. I don't respond to YouTube comments for the reasons I've discussed, but I'll answer your questions. If you email me, info@radicalcounselor.com. All right? I hope this was helpful.